Another key element which I expressed with these few diagrams here is that of dialogic space, if the creation of a dialogic space. This comes out of my work early on with Neil Mercer in the UK, developing a program and analysing it that was very effective in getting children to think better and to think better collectively, working together. And when we looked at the groups that were better at solving reasoning tests together, the main difference was that in those groups they shifted from this attitude where they were just talking in parallel to this attitude where they were listening to each other, they were sharing ideas, they were changing their mind, they'd created a shared space. And you can actually feel this shared space sometimes in classrooms or in conversations. It's when you shift your identity from just being on one side of a barrier, strategically trying to win an argument, to actually sharing the thinking. In a real dialogue, you can't say who said it, who didn't say it. It's not important. You're working together. So this shift of identity into the space of the in-between, as Buber called it, is also crucial to good collective thinking and to education. And it's this idea of establishing a dialogic space and expanding that space by having more perspectives, by having more reflection, that is actually crucial to education. So the focus of education shifts from trying to construct objects, either better selves or knowledge construction, to actually expanding a space of reflection. An educated person is somebody who can reflect, who can see things from multiple perspectives, who is carrying that space with them. I think this is a new perspective on education. And of course the internet embodies that space. What is the internet? Is it a collection of fiber optic cables? Is it a collection of servers? Well, if you use it on the inside, it has this potential for multiple voices, multiple communities. It could carry this dialogic space. That is the real space of the internet from the inside. But another key thing for dialogues, which I'm developing from Bakhtin, combining him with French philosopher Levinas, is this important idea that in dialogues there's always this potential for an infinite new perspectives and possibilities. There are many arguments for this. A simple argument for this is Bakhtin's point that in any dialogue there's always a super addressee. So now, for instance, I'm talking to you, perhaps this audience in front of me, perhaps the people listening now, 550 apparently. I hope they're all still there. Please stay. I'll try and be more interesting. Or perhaps for an infinite audience, I don't know when, on the internet. I'm not just talking to that audience. I also listen to myself saying things. And as I hear, I'm not always happy. And I'm saying, is that what I'm struggling with it. There's always a third voice that is in a way stepping outside of you, looking down. And we can see how children change their minds as they express their ideas. They don't just see them from the point of view of the other person they're talking to. They also see them as if from the outside. But if you think about it, when you pin down this super addressee, this third voice, and people often do, George Herbert Mead called it the generalized other. Lots of people might call it the voice of reason. Some people call it the voice of the community of scientists. When you pin it down and you dialogue with that super addressee, there's another super addressee. There's always another perspective. There's always an outside. And the challenge for good thinking, critical thinking, is to be open to that voice from the outside. It's not just to listen to a fixed image of what is good thinking. It's always to be open to challenges. Perhaps there's somebody in the Amazonian rainforest who actually challenges our ground rules of reason, who sees things in a different way. And so in other words, there's this idea of the infinite other, that this potential for an other who cannot be defined, who cannot be controlled, but who speaks to us from outside of our representations. And one should be open to that voice. And that voice is not in every dialogue, because most dialogues have very narrow concerns and very limits in context, but it's always a potential. We can always open up the dialogue. There's this infinity on the inside. And this, of course, is a big challenge to a lot of situated learning theory, where they seem to imagine that we can locate things in a situation. But what is a situation? From where do you locate that situation? Every situation has to be defined and located from within the dialogue. And since we can never fix our position, we can never fix our situation. So it's important to realize that although dialogues are always in some way situated in history and in society, they also have this infinite potential for rethinking history and society. And that's where the creativity comes from.